Paul.
I agree with Senator Murphy. I mean, you want a ballistic missile deal with Iran. We got rid of the nuclear deal, which took years and years of pressure with international sanctions. We got a nuclear deal, and you say you want a ballistic missile deal. Well, they're not going to do a ballistic missile deal with you ever, as long as Saudi Arabia is spending like 8 times as much as they do, and the Gulf sheikdom surrounding them. It's a complete non-starter. So if that's our goal, it's sort of like saying we're no longer going to have any kind of diplomatic solution with Iran. With regard to Iran, Mr. Trachtenberg, do you believe the president has the authority to wage war with Iran without congressional authorization?
I believe that every nation has the right to self-defense, and that if attacked, the United States has the ability.
That's not the question. The question isn't on defending against an attack of sailors on a boat or people in an embassy. I think we all agree with that. We're talking about war. Let's say they attack one of our boats in there and we defend ourselves. We all agree we should defend ourselves. Can the president continue to a full-scale war with 120,000 troops? Can we have a full-scale waging of war with Iran without congressional authorization?
Only the Congress has the responsibility to declare war, has the authority to declare war.
Right. So the answer is the president can't do it, and that would be the explicit answer I would hope we would get from the policy person at the State Department. Ms. Thompson, the Aegis ashore, is it essentially run by the same system as the Aegis afloat?
So I'd actually defer the particulars with the Aegis, since it is a military piece of equipment, to my DoD counterpart. I can tell you that we've had discussions on the Aegis system with my Russian counterparts, but the ins and outs of the Aegis really isn't my
Are they essentially run by the same system?
I believe the essential components are similar.
Okay. So this is also what Lockheed Martin says. They make it, and they say it's essentially the same system. We have also folks at the, I think it's the U.S. U.S. Naval Institute saying that basically Aegis ashore could be easily turned into the offensive cruise missile system. And so I guess my problem is if you really are serious about talking to Russia, it isn't that we have to accept that they're telling the truth or that we agree with their points. But Ms. Thompson, when you say that their response that we're in violation is laughable and the world sees it as a fraud, it sounds to me like you're not really interested in negotiating with the Russians, because I think it's a debatable point, it's an arguable point, it has technical details. That's what nuclear arms negotiators and real diplomats are supposed to be discussing. So if it's essentially the same system and it got converted to a system of offense and we could launch cruise missiles from it, it sounds like the Russians have a point. And it sounds like it's at least a debatable point that we should be discussing before we say, oh, well, it's all the Russian side. That's not what diplomacy is about. Diplomacy is about figuring out what the other side is saying and not just saying they're a bunch of crazy, laughable people and we can't talk to them. That's the recipe for no diplomacy. And I think that's what you've set up in Iran, but it's also what you're setting up in Russia, is that we're not even willing to discuss whether the Aegis ashore is similar to Aegis afloat and whether they have an argument or not. I would think that's where we'd set down technical people at a table and have a discussion.
Is that a question? May I respond to that, Senator?
Well, I mean, the question is, you say it's laughable. Is that something a diplomat should be saying about something that is the main point Russia's bringing up? I'm not saying we accept it. I'm not saying it's true. But if that's their main complaint about us and our main complaint is SSC-8, we would hear each other's complaints, but we wouldn't say to the other side, we wouldn't say in public that their argument is laughable if we wanted to come to an agreement.
I can tell you, Senator, in my 6 engagements with my Russian counterpart since September, I have said that it is a professional discussion. I said that about the Deputy Foreign Minister, Sergei Grabkov, who I've met multiple times. We've met and had candid discussions. We've had technical experts meet. We just had the BCC, and we've given readouts on that up about 2.5 weeks ago up to the Hill, where we have had the discussions, and they have raised the intelligence, and we have countered that intelligence with our technical experts.
My advice to you is I wouldn't say in public that your adversary's response is laughable. That really goes a long way towards setting back any kind of possible diplomatic solution. And this is important. We're talking about, whether or not the world could be destroyed by nuclear weapons, whether we should limit the amount of nuclear weapons. When we say our adversary is laughable, you do a great injustice to the idea of diplomacy. So I hope you'll reconsider things you say in public.